Today I'm here with my lovely mother, who is fantastic at taking care of all plants, but specifically orchids. She has a huge collection of them and they're all blooming right now. So I thought, what better time than now to do a little orchid tour? And she's gonna give a couple of stories about each of the orchids, maybe a couple of care tips, and
share some memories.
Yes, let's get started.
So the way I got this plant is Helen and I were at Home Depot. They had brought in a whole bunch of orchids and had them all on display for sale and everything. And this was one that was left over. It was after the big sale and everything, and it was pretty sad looking. It hadn't been taken care of. It was kind of wilty. So Helen said, "Oh, please, can we take it home?" And I resisted at first because I already had so many orchids. I said, I can't take care of any more. But we did. He bought it and we brought it home, and it's been one of the hardiest plants, and it's got huge leaves, beautiful color. I love it. It blooms every year. Now, these are both what you would recognize as the traditional Phalaenopsis plant. This, I really don't remember where it came from. I think it was a gift to my sister or someone in her family, and she did not have the knack, as she said, for keeping the orchids alive, so she gave it to me to take care of. It has never really been a prolific bloomer, and it's not a really large plant, but it's beautiful and it's special because I was able to, take care of it, keep it alive, and I love it. This one, like you said, they really are almost identical. The coloring and everything, you can't really see too well. This one has a lot of purple on the background, on the backs of the blossoms. This one has a little splash of color on the back, you can see. This plant is very special. It was sent by a friend, a family member, I'm not really sure, to the memorial service for my mother. And it was in full bloom at the time because the garden centers and the florist shops can get them to bloom whenever they want. So it was gorgeous. I think everybody in the family just said, "Here, Gail, you take it and take care of it." I am so happy that it's done so well. It's bloomed every year. The bloom stalk on this particular one is so long and so hardy. And this year I trained it on this kind of frame. And I clipped it, I tied it, I did all kinds of methods to get it to grow along this frame. And it did pretty good. This particular plant, when it blooms, the blossoms last a long time. I can remember the blossoms on this lasting like 2 months at least before they'll start fading away.
So, do you want to tell the audience about how you got into orchid care?
Yeah, my earliest attempt at it was I bought a tiny little orchid from an orchid show that they used to have at one of the malls here in the Austin area. And I did not know anything about orchids at the time. That's where it got started.
Yeah, wow.
So this is a division of the very, very first orchid that I acquired. It was just a tiny little thing. I don't even remember if it was in a plastic container. I think, as I remember what they sold them, they took styrofoam egg cartons and they cut them into like 2 little hollow things, and they would put a tiny little orchid in there and put a little bark in there. I think that's how I took it home. They're not blooming right now, they're a fall bloom.
And so did that one bloom the first year you had it?
No.
How many years did it take before it bloomed?
Well, I probably got it about 87, and it was probably around 2000. It bloomed.
Oh my
God. It took a long time.
Okay, that's not what I was expecting.
Well, I had it in my apartment when I was living in South Austin, and it didn't get very good light. It stayed alive, but it didn't really grow very much.
Okay.
And so then someplace along the way, when I moved, my dad, your granddad, took it out to Johnson City and took care of it for a bunch of years.
Oh.
And that's when it finally grew. It grew lots of leaves. It was a huge plant. And then it finally ended up blooming right around the time, we were expecting and we were born. And
it was me
exactly
that helped it
yeah.
bloom. Okay, perfect. That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
How old is that orchid?
Well, if I got it in 87.
Yeah, 2026 minus 87, whatever that is.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is a smaller orchid. It never has been a great big one. So this is one, again, that came from the nursery that we used to go to called It's a Jungle. Holland bought it. When we bought it, I think it had just one blossom stick. It was full though. It had a whole lot of beautiful little flowers on it, and I think we got it because of the color. It's maroon. My husband Holland is a big A&M fan.
This is my favorite orchid. This one just caught my eye because of the maroon and white and the A&M. Remembrance of me graduating from A&M being an Aggie, so every time it blooms, it reminds me of A&M, gig 'em.
So for those who are not familiar, like myself, Phalaenopsis versus, what was the other one?
Cattleyas.
Okay, what is the difference between those?
Just a different species.
Okay.
The Phalaenopsis are the ones that most people will recognize. They are widely available. A lot of garden centers have them. A lot of your grocery stores will have them. They have really broad leaves. They grow in a certain pattern with the leaves coming out of the middle.
Okay.
The bloom is usually, it can be a double stalk, but usually it's one stalk, very long, graceful looking, that kind of bends over. The Cattleya looks more like, I'm not sure if they still do it so much anymore, but they used to have orchid corsages.
Oh, yeah.
And that flower is kind of reminiscent of a lot of what orchid corsages use. It's a very large blossom. Usually the one I have is a large blossom. Even within the Cattleya family though, there's all just immense variations of what the flowers look like. So there's just so many different varieties.
Yeah.
So this plant, I treat it as a Phalaenopsis because the leaf structure and the flowers, you can see it's just starting to bloom. There's one blossom right there, one flower that's about to open, and then it's going to have a whole lot more as it eventually opens up. It's beautiful when they're all open and it's so colorful. This plant came from a nursery that used to be in Austin, and it was called It's a Jungle. And we would go there sometimes just to walk around and look at all the plants. And my husband, Holland, got this for me probably for a birthday, anniversary, some celebration. It was a special plant, just because it was so different than all the ones I had at the time. And I have it staked up because this bloom stalk will get really heavy when all the blooms open up, and it will tip the whole plant over at some point if I don't stake it up. So that's why I have that in there. So in nature, orchids grow up the side of a tree, or a lot of them grow up in the treetops. Their roots are specially adapted to cling to things. They get nourishment when it rains. So when we adapt them to grow for us in the house or in your greenhouse or whatever, the recommended substrate to put them in is a loose bark mix. The roots like to have a little bit of air moving around them if possible. They don't like to be wet all the time. That's why when I water it, I really drench it and then I let it dry out.
Okay.
Because they don't like to have their feet wet for a long period of time. People that take care of a lot of orchids, they use their own mix. They put in things to retain moisture or make it drier. So everybody has their own preference. I use bark mix. I add a few other things to it.
Secret recipe.
Yeah.
This one is beautiful.
This is a pretty blossom. I have no idea the story on this, where it came from. I've had it a long time. I wasn't even sure because I didn't have a stake in it what color this was. I had forgotten. So it's a beautiful purple and it's got little veins in it. Again, it's just special.
So if somebody wanted to get into orchids, they have never taken care of an orchid before, do you have any tips? Don't?
Well, do a little bit of research. There's an American Orchid Society website that you can go to and get a lot of information for free. You can become a member and get a lot more information, but they have general, what they call culture sheets that tell a lot of basic information about how to grow it. Talk to people if you can find out somebody that you know has been successful at it.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it. Be prepared for struggle, I guess, if it doesn't grow a leaf when you think it should be, or sometimes you get disappointed because it doesn't bloom, right away for a few years if you're taking care of it. But it's so rewarding when it really does bloom, or you get multiple ones blooming.
Yeah.
It's like, I would encourage people to try it. I wouldn't spend a lot of money at first. You can order orchids that cost a lot of money.
$1,000?
I don't know. Well, they probably are. I don't see them.
That's not the kind we have.
It's not the kind I have. So I would go with just a general one you get at the grocery store or your favorite garden center. And just try a couple. 2 orchids. So these are actually, I don't know if you would say twins or mother-daughter. I think probably this was the original plant. As I remember, this just came from like the HEB floral department. I got into a phase where I didn't have room in a windowsill or on a plant stand to grow any more big orchids. And so I told my husband and my sister and everybody, if you're gonna give me orchids, they gotta be small. So this one was a miniature orchid. I think this is probably one of the first of the miniature orchids. And it started to grow what they call a keiki or kiki, which is a little tiny plant. So this is, I guess, what you'd call a clone maybe of this one. And they're gonna bloom at different times, but that's just the way orchids are. They're, they do their own thing sometimes.
And I just want to point out that she's not even showing us all of her orchids. She still has others that are still working on blooming.
So this plant was a gift from our neighbors. They were on vacation. They just asked us to watch out for things at their house. And so as a thank you gift, she gave us this orchid. I think it blooms just about every year.
Do you have a favorite orchid?
No, they're all special. I couldn't pick one if I had to.
What is the secret?
Oh, there's no secret. It's trial and error,
Yeah.
mostly. Most of the ones I have are Phalaenopsis or Cattleyas. Cattleyas, pretty much like the same kind of sun and water and fertilizer routine. The Phalaenopsis, like a little bit different. They don't like so much of the direct light, and they like a little bit cooler sometimes. They're not as heat tolerant. So once you kind of figure out what the plant's like, try to provide that to the best of your ability. It's trial and error.
Do your best.
Yeah.
Thank you to my mom for giving us so much lovely information and showing us your beautiful flowers.
You're so welcome. It was so fun, and to get to go over some of the stories and remember things. It was special.
Yeah, thank you again.
You're welcome.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye. So, this is not an orchid. It's a Christmas cactus. And the date today is March the 8th. So, it's not even Christmas. But it did bloom at Christmas time. And it was, after it got finished blooming, it sat for a little while and rested. And then the house got cold because we had some cold weather in probably January, and it decided, okay, I need to bloom again. So it's blooming in March.
And don't worry, because there are more where that came from. And the blooms also come in white.
Thanks for watching.